Over 80% of the population in the United States lives in cities, over 80%. That's a lot of people, especially when it comes to crap hitting the fan, because understand city life is not going to be sustainable if that happens. Maybe you're one of those people, by the way. Maybe you have a nice little apartment in the city or a flat, and you take into this consideration. That's why you watch this channel, and you want to know what you can do to possibly get out. Or how about you're one of those country folk? You live out in the country and you worry about the city people coming out. Lots of people by massive droves coming out of the city, coming to a place where you live. That's a very real concern as well. Well, you know what? This video is devoted to both of you, city and country people alike, because there's some serious things you need to take in consideration. And I want you to understand, doesn't matter if you're city or country, stay to the end. There's some very interesting statistics that you need to look at that'll help you understand how it works. All right, let's jump into some information. First things to consider, number one, the government will tell you to shelter in place. And if you're in the city, that is a very, very scary situation. Even if you've been prepping and you have like 30 or 60 or 90 days food, if not more, and you have all the water, that's the least of the story. Because understand that you may be prepared, but the millions of other people in the city probably aren't. And there's going to be starvation and desperation beyond that. Let's go ahead and pretend that everybody is going to be able to get through with food. No. We have history to teach us. In 1977, New York City had a blackout, a really huge blackout. Understand this blackout only lasted 25 hours. That's it, just 25 hours, just a little more than a day. And from that, there was over 1,600 stores that were looted and over 1,000 fires set with arson. Things get crazy quickly. And that's talking about a situation where the power is only out for 25 hours. Crap hits the fan, power goes out a lot longer than that. I think you can fill in the blank. Number two, a huge horde of people. Massive amount of people. Can you picture thousands, tens of thousands of people leaving the city as a sea of people trying to get out? And these people are going to be looking for food. They're kind of like locusts. Think of it that way. And I'm not downplaying mankind by any means, but understand the analogy. They'll go through and they need food. They'll go through anything possible thing they can to try to scavenge as much food as possible. I don't care if it's fruit trees nearby, somebody's garden, people's houses. And those people's houses who live in the suburbs or even further out in the country will defend themselves, but you can't defend yourself against hordes of thousands, if not tens of thousands of people. It is statistically impossible to do. So as they move out, more and more people come out as far as packs and starve. Starvation will kick in, but understand it's not going to be the head people of this group. I don't want to say head like leaders, but obviously the strong, military-aged men type people who are the ones who are going to be getting most of the food. First off, some of these people will actually have less ethics and morals than we do, but they're also physically stronger to do this. And they actually have, if they're a little bit older, little kids to try to get food for. It's not going to be pretty either way. So keep that in mind, that the huge masses of people will be going in one direction. If you're wanting to survive this at all and you're heading out of the city, you might want to consider a complete alternate route and stay away from these huge crowds. And you know what? Toward the end of the video, I'm going to show you how to do that. 3, many will be aimless with no destination. So as they leave the city, they just know that grass is green on the other side, and they head out and they think, well, maybe I'll go into the forest and eat pine cones, I guess, something like that. Or you know what? Maybe they're looking for a small town that can have shelter, because I'm sure people in small towns will have pity on me and they'll let me come sleep in their bed in their house. I think they're going to end up sleeping on the streets per se with little or no food. But because the reason being is, even if you do have somebody taking pity, we're talking about millions of other people with you. It's not simply just you and your family. Okay, again, I'll address this further too, that when it comes to people coming out into the countries and where to go, that's one of the purposes of the video, and I want to show you where this is heading. Number 4, they also have no predetermined plan. And I think that is pretty self-evident. They're not going to have a bug-out bag or some kind of kit. Any food they have with them, it's probably going to be gone a few days earlier. No food, no water. Not even, in many cases, having warm enough clothes to be able to make it out. What happens if this happens in winter? Which it very well might. People are simply not prepared for this. That's something else to keep in mind. And 5, those with cars, forget it. Even if you're in the city with an absolute full tank car, it's statistically unlikely you're going to even make it out. First off, there's going to be bumper-to-bumper traffic. And that's even if the government doesn't block the roads anyway, because again, they're probably going to have shelter in place. I had a friend who lived in downtown of a city, which I won't mention, and he actually had a hybrid, which, is a little bit better for this kind of situation. And he said, I clocked it out. If I leave the center of the city and I make it to my bug out location, it's X amount of miles, therefore it's X amount of gas, and here's a little bit extra. I have a couple gas cans. I should be able to make it just fine. But that will not save your butt, because the problem is bumper to bumper traffic, roadblocks, congestion, people's vehicles breaking down or running out of gas are going to be blocking it even more. As you're sitting there barely going, idling, and then barely going and then idling, it's going to continuously sip up your gas, even with a hybrid, and eventually the time's going to come, you're going to run out of gas too. So unless you do have a very strategic way to make it with your car, like an alternate route that nobody knows about, maybe, but that's highly unlikely. Number 6, don't count on GPS. Numerous reasons for this, by the way. We don't know what's causing the crap hitting the fan. It could be a CME, EMP, that easily could take out our GPS satellites. If we're talking about military controlling everything or the government, GPS is controlled by the military. Flip of a switch, they can turn it all off. Keep that in mind. So with that, do you have maps? If so, do you know how to read maps? Long story short, it comes down to this. It doesn't matter if you're a country person, people coming out, or if you're a city person trying to go out into the country. Well, you know what? There are some certain things you need to know. And first off, when it comes to this, there's some very interesting statistics, and here's where we're getting to it, that you need to see and understand to help you make those plans. Doesn't matter if you're country or city. And these stats were given to me by a very good friend of mine from KLW World News. Great channel, lots of news, lots of really good information. Check them out when you get a chance. And here's some of the information they want you to know. In crap hits the fan, when the grid goes down, how will these masses move? Again, staying with the masses in these cases may not be your best bet. Grid goes down, they'll head in a certain direction, and they'll statistically take certain side roads and such, and it'll make it easier if you understand which side roads and which direction they go, so you can take an alternate path. So important to know. Look at this. Most of these masses will only go approximately 2 hours from a city. Now, we're talking about 2 hours driving time, so what, maybe 150 miles. Most experts believe they'll stay within 150 miles of a city, most of them anyway. Furthermore, they rarely will go past 10 miles from an interstate. We're talking about the major freeways, by the way. And then from the smaller highways, they rarely will go 2 miles from those highways. And let's say they get off those highways and they come to a dirt road, they probably won't go more than 1 mile down a dirt road looking for stuff. And I will say more than likely, the more you go down those dirt roads, which it's such sparse population anyway, that's probably you're going to actually come across more problems with people who are there to protect and defend themselves. So I don't know where these stats came from, but I've seen these as expert stats in other locations too. So it's something we can literally go by. So as a goal, you have to understand that as a city person leaving the cities, it's best you don't go with the crowds, especially if they go in these directions. But if you come to a dirt road, or let's say you're coming off a highway, most people only go 2 miles, you need to be that one or that family that goes past the 2 miles, 5 miles down that road, maybe 10. When you come to a dirt road, most people only go like maybe a mile down the dirt road. You need to be not those people and go 5 miles down those dirt road. And hopefully find somebody that's going to help you, give you shelter and food, or maybe even let you sleep in their barn or something. Because if you stay with the crowds, if you picture yourself in the country now, here as a country person, and if you're like me, I really want to help my fellow man out. I mean, there's always, you have to be careful about your preps and letting your preps out. We only have so many in the first place. But if we're talking about a family coming to my house and it looks like they can help out, I might share some of my food with them. And it looks like this crap hits the fan's only going to last, for a year. I would seriously consider letting them in my house. Consider it. But what's going to happen when 43 families show up or 20 families show up? Do you have enough food for 20 families? I mean, you may not even have enough food for one family, but you surely are not going to give away food for 20 or 50. You need to be a family that's by yourself. You stand a much better chance of having some kind of relationship with some country people being just you and your family rather than staying with crowds. I'm always talking about how you want to make sure you stay with crowds when it comes to like gray man, and that's true. But if we're talking about crap, it's the fan getting out of the city, yeah, you need to literally get away from the crowds. Now, for you, country people, especially if it's like you in the city trying to become a country person, buying some property, keep this in mind. You need to really find that property of solace. You want to be out in the middle of nowhere, just relaxing, and go by these stats again, these stats right here, and make sure you find a piece of property that fits these criterion. So statistically, somebody's not going to find your home. So still stick with me. There's something I want to show you. But ultimately, the moral of the story is it doesn't matter if you're a city person heading in the country or if you're a country person trying to stay away from the city people out in the country. The rules are the same. Follow these stats. Stay off the beaten path. Go way out in the middle of nowhere where somebody's not going to find you. And for us, we live so far out in the middle of nowhere. This is all planned on purpose for us years ago when we bought this place. We are so far out in the middle of nowhere that honestly, it's a drag trying to live a life. As we try to go into town, I teach martial arts most evenings. It's at least a 30-minute drive just to go to a place. And we're not talking about 30-minute drive being stopped by red lights all the time. We're talking about driving miles down a dirt road, which isn't maintained very well. It's another consideration too, by the way, when this crap hits the fan, the roads are going to be almost become impassable. Ours, after a week or two of rains, we can barely make it through on our own without having a decent four-wheel drive. Like my Subaru Outback will do pretty well, but most people out here have big pickup trucks, something to keep in mind. But it's so much of a pain having to go into town, so far out in the town. But, you know, the way things are heading, I wouldn't exchange it for anything. I'd rather be out here in the middle of nowhere. With that, I want to introduce you to another prepping channel I love, Faraway Prepper. He is amazing and something all preppers should strive for, and this is what you should be looking for. That's what this video is all about. He bought a plot of land with his family in New England, which he is setting up as his bug out location. Or you know what? If nothing happens, his summer family vacation spot. Great. The property came with a broken down cabin, which he transformed into a beautiful spot getaway. It is awesome. And watch the videos and how he did that alone. It's just amazing. And by the way, I'm super jealous of his river. I love it. I mean, we considered having a property on a river or a lake too when we bought this place, but we also thought about always watching the kids. I don't want my kids to drown. That's one of the things that we didn't do it, but we love it. It's absolutely gorgeous. And he has a very pristine, out in the middle of nowhere property that's going to be very difficult to find if people are heading out his way. All right, so anyways, when you get a chance, I link below both Faraway Prepper and KLW News, both channels I check regularly. You won't regret checking them out. Okay, so ultimately, long story short, it doesn't matter if you're bugging out of the city, heading in the country, or it doesn't matter if you're in the country watching those city slickers coming out. It's important to know where these masses are going to go or how far off the beaten path they will go. And now we can prep and plan accordingly to be ready for this. I mean, I always say if you're going to the city, you need to have a bug out location anyway. If you're a city person, find out where you're going to go. You know, get out of Dodge and go to that location and be ready for it. See how much gas it would take. See how much it would take if you rode your bike or walked, and you need to plan for that. Let me ask you, do you have a country place that you go to? Are bugging out? Maybe you live in the country, or maybe you're a city person and you don't have a place. Let's get into a conversation. I really like to read some of the comments. Put them in the comments below, and let's check out how we're all standing in that situation. Because obviously it's very important. Crap hits the fan. Over 80% of the population of the country are not going to have food coming to their place anymore. And that alone will make people leave very quickly and have problems accordingly. All right, everybody, thanks for watching as always, and have a great day.